What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. I, of course, am the Dharma Guy, and the other half of this equation here is the Dope Doctor, and there he is for everybody. What's up, man? Oh, okay. I thought your audio wasn't working again. I was like, oh, gosh.
I felt like I was like stuttering there for a second.
Anyways, welcome,
I
everybody.
was getting ready for the show. My
That's
my
right.
computer was getting ready for the show.
You got to remember, man, that the intro is like 10 seconds now. It's not like that minute. But anyways, as always, this is we're Dope and Dharma, and on Tuesdays we do Dharma Time. I am the Dharma Guy. He's a Dope Doctor. You can follow us each on social media, as you see under our names. He's at the Dope Doctor. I'm at the Dharma Guy. Um, we're back to being consistent, right? We did a show last week, and we're doing one this week, so that's A plus for consistency, right? Um, so last night we did our Couch Live hour on our local radio station on WOKB 1680 AM, and I think today is going to be a semi continuation of that one, right? And so, full disclosure for everybody who is watching, be it live or later on, there is we have a guest in the room here who refuses to go on camera. It's my daughter's friend Dominique. She recently turned 18. Congratulations, welcome to adulthood. But her and I have been involved in some interesting discussions as of late. And one of the discussions we had, it was in reference to weed, the left-handed cigarettes, the wacky tobacco. So we were talking about that. The reefer. The marijuana. So we were talking about that and kind of just, the ins and outs of it, right? And it's a very hotly debated topic. You're typically on either end of the spectrum as far as pro or anti, I guess. And so I figured we could talk about that because one of the precepts in the Buddhist philosophy is you have to refrain from intoxicants of any kind, really. And the reason behind that is anytime you put an intoxicant into your system, you're not able to think clearly and handle things as skillfully as you would if you were in a sober mindset, right? You're not able to fully be in the present moment the way you're supposed to be when you're under an intoxicant of some sort. And so I want to talk about that a little bit today, kind of what that means, because I don't think it gets talked about enough. I really don't. You and I have had this conversation amongst ourselves, but we've also done it on air many times. And the one thing that you kind of said a while back, and probably because you've been in this industry now for 30 years and you yourself partook, it took me a while to catch on because I've only been in this industry for 10 years, but I feel like I've had ample exposure at this point because I've been in groups and I've talked to people and whatnot. And I finally saw kind of what you alluded to earlier on, and that is nothing is hotly as debated, or nothing is as hotly debated as weed. Like, it's a weird thing. It's like most other drugs, people can kind of, and so for the purpose of this discussion, let me first reiterate that we're talking about all drugs and intoxicants, but it seems like there's a much easier agreement when you start talking about meth and coke and heroin and stuff. So I think today we're going to primarily focus on weed because that seems to be the one that there's a lot of debate on. And when you just mention weed, you always joke, but it's true. Talking about weed, it's like talking about somebody's grandmother. Like, they're ready to fight you. You know what I mean? It's like this weird emotional attachment to weed. And to the point where they can't even logically discuss any downfalls, right? Everything is so pro. All they want to admit is there's a plus side to it, but they don't want to admit the balance. Like, there's a plus and minus to everything in life. But when they start talking about weed, it's like that's the only thing in the world that has no minuses, and it's just simply not true. And so, I talk to my kids a lot. And there's other people in my life that I interact with that are very pro weed. And so I want to make sure that we establish why we're talking here. You and I are not anti any drugs. You and I are anti the disease of addiction, right? And when it comes to my children and weed, I'm not anti weed. I'm anti the mentality and the decision making and the behaviors that are associated with the use of it. That's what I don't like. And so I think that's where we're going to focus a lot of our talk today. By all means, if you have any input that you guys want to put in, feel free to comment and we'll address them. If you hear a random voice pop in, it's going to be Dominique who's here, who wants to chime in because she's very passionate about this particular subject. And so, I don't know, let's get started, I guess, man. So, you said, I want to start, I guess, you said something very interesting last night on the way home, so I think we'll start there. I was saying to you that I was trying to figure out logically why weed is so different than every other drug. Like, why is it that's the one that people will cling on to the most? And you made a very interesting declaration about the area of the brain that it attacks the most. So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so pot obviously goes to the frontal cortex, the frontal lobe, right? So this part, that's our thinking, our reasoning, our learning, our listening. This is where we make decisions from. So the midbrain is where we get our instinctual stuff. That's the lizard brain. And the
Yep.
frontal part, the frontal cortex is where we actually can disseminate a lot of that information before we actually do the deed, whatever it is,
Yep.
right? So you have instincts in the middle, and then you got,
Logic.
your thought process in the front. And that's where marijuana tends to live. So that's where we see the accumulation, um, whether it be a one-time usage, multi-time usage, or years of usage. Because when you study the brain of somebody who's used it 5, 10, 20 years, that's where we see the buildup in the thickness of the cell walls in that frontal cortex. Therefore, it being in our decision center makes sense. Because think about it like this. You have a company, right? Where is your president of the corporation? Top floor, top building, can see everything, right? Something like that. Well, that is our executive function. That's this part of the brain. So that's the part of the brain that you want to mostly be able to be in control of. So it's very smart of a drug to want to live there. And not only live there temporarily, but we can see that the cell walls can grow up to 400 times its normal size. We can see that it could stay there up to 1 to 2 years, depending on how much you actually use. So long past the effects that you wanted, that you enjoyed it for, the actual other effects, or it actually impacting that functioning of that particular part of the brain, can last up to 1 to 2 years. So that makes it pretty curious, because that's not what you went in it for, right? You went in it
Yep.
for some other reasons. So how is that a problem for you? Well, it makes it a problem for you if you are one of these people that are saying, I make all my decisions, or I do what I want to do, how I want to do it, where I want to do it. Well, if I control the decision part of your brain, right, then you're not necessarily making all of the decisions you want to do. And that means I have a say so in your decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that it's something to be an alarmist about, to get all freaked out about, but at least it's an honest discussion so that we can further investigate, well, what does that actually mean to me? And me going into it, at least I want to know that that's happening. I want to know why it goes to that part of the brain. What does that part of the brain really mean to me as an individual? So I don't just simply defend it blindly, because just like you say, when you talk about marijuana, and I used to be guilty, Trinity, you'd even bring up marijuana and I'd be like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, stay away from my grandmother.
It's not a drug. It's an herb. It's a plant.
I hated any adult even bringing up the conversation. As a matter of fact, I told you, the only time that I actually talked to a political candidate in my life that was going for president, and I had an opportunity to ask a question during a candidacy. The person was trying to become the president of the United States. I'm at University of Texas, El Paso. I think it was 1988, maybe 87. And Gary Hart was going for president. And I said, what do you think about the legalization of marijuana? And he says, I'm for it. And I like, you're my next president. And I was a single issue voter.
Sure.
It was the first time I was going to vote for vote ever. I wanted Ronald Reagan gone. I didn't want anything to do with Ronald Reagan. I wanted this Gary Hart, and then he got caught in a sex scandal and it didn't work out. But the point is that the question you were asking was about that frontal lobe, and the real importance of it, Trinity, is that if I wanted to control you, right? If I wanted to physically control you, we have historical knowledge about how to control somebody. So, like we were talking about last night, Hitler, for instance, right?
Yeah.
You think Hitler, you think about 8 million dead Jews, right?
Yep.
That's what you come in your head. So you think he physically killed people. But the only way you can physically kill 8 million Jews is as you psychologically control other people to help you kill the 8 million Jews.
Yep.
So what's worse, Trinity? Physical power of control or psychological power of control?
Oh, without a doubt, psychological.
Correct. So psychological power and control is the same kind of control Hitler used in order to kill the 8 million Jews. Psychological power and control is exactly what abusers of women, there's at least one physical abuser that'll watch this show. You know who you are. You physically abuse your woman, or you physically abuse your children, and you, my friend, are using psychological control over that person to physically abuse that person.
Yep.
So that, for a long time, even I was one of those who used to say, well, at least it's not physically addicting like alcohol, or it's not physically addicting like cocaine or heroin. No, it's psychologically addicting, which actual psychological control is permanent. Physical dependence is temporary.
Yep.
The part of addiction that's temporary is the physical part. The part that's permanent, as of now, doesn't mean we won't find a cure, is psychological. So we've always measured marijuana incorrectly. We've always measured the effects of marijuana incorrectly. And we've always used a more dangerous drug, in our opinion, to make our point. We never compared THC to oxygen. We've never compared marijuana to oxygen because then we would lose. We compared it instead to like inhaling something more dangerous, like a cocaine or drinking alcohol. Things that we felt like, oh, I got a slam dunk here.
Yeah.
You drink, I smoke. You can't drink and drive. I can smoke and drive. Now, it doesn't mean I drive correctly. I might drive 30 miles an hour on a freeway. I've done that, by the way. And I didn't really wake up until cars were flying by me. I was like, whoa, 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 okay. Or I ended up in the middle of the desert. I lived out in the middle of the desert. So I drive out, and next thing you know, it's all dark in this desert, and I'm thinking, oh, I missed my exit. I was listening to probably some Ozzy Osbourne or something like that, and I passed my exit up. Next thing you know, Trinity in Texas, there's not exits here like here in Florida every mile.
Right.
It's every 50 miles or 100 miles. So that's a pretty big mistake back then. But anyway, that was a long answer to a short question.
No, I mean, but it leads us into what we're talking about, right? Because like I'm approaching it from a spiritual perspective in the sense that my fundamental issue with it is it comes in and it clouds your decision making. It starts to turn you against your own stuff, your own belief system, and then and it convinces you that it was your choice and then you did the right thing, right? And an example of what I mean is she's in the room now. So I had a conversation with her yesterday, and I was like, do you believe in lying? Do you think lying's a good thing? And of course, the answer is no. Do you think that criminal behavior is a good thing or a bad thing? Of course, you think it's a bad thing. Do you think being shady and trying to hide things from friends and family is a good thing? No, it's a bad thing. Well, the cost of entry to smoke weed in Florida, you have to do all those things to some extent. You have to go against your own moral code. If you don't believe in lying, you're going to have to lie to somebody if you're going to go smoke weed. You can't just be open and honest and tell the whole world. You're going to have to lie. You're going to have to be shady and hide things from people. So it turns you against that thing, and that's what I'm talking about. Is the normal, healthy, well-adjusted mindset isn't doing those things. So if you are, that to me questions like, is it really that good for you? Like if it's making you go against these things, and you and I talked earlier. You and I both think that the argument of a gateway drug is BS. However, there is a precedent that you're setting, and the precedent is I want to do something so badly I'm going to justify going against my own moral code. You've already established that you're willing to do that, so that means if something else comes along that sparks your interest enough, you'll figure out a way of lying to yourself and coming up with justifications to do it. And I think you said something last night that was interesting. Just the way you put it was, it started out by saying, well, the law doesn't apply to me, right? Because one of the answers that she gave was, well, I don't think it should be illegal. I was like, well, but it is. And so it's already started by making you think that the law doesn't apply to you, right? What were you saying about that last night?
Yeah, and let me take it just a little bit back and then come back to that.
Yeah.
So when you're smoking, when you first start smoking, right? And it happens to everybody because typically you're a younger person when you start smoking. Now, what's happening when you're a younger person? You're trying to define your place in the world, right?
Yep.
You're trying to find your place in your family, in the world, in your school. You're going through all kinds of stuff. And marijuana just tends to be there as that friend through all that. So you develop this bond with pot that's just very different, right? Because it's so unassuming, right? And it gets within you and it allows you to think different about those things that you're already challenging. So you start challenging, man, my family, my parents, who they are to me. And you have to not tell them I'm smoking pot. So it starts with little lies like that, which are actually bigger lies to a lot of people. I'm not trying to minimize the lie, but it's I'm going to hide that behavior. I'm going to hide that decision. And I'm going to start doing this. And I'm going to start trusting other people with what I put inside a very important part of my brain. It's the part of the brain that actually defines me as a person. And if I start stepping a little left and a little left and a little left as I'm walking forward, if I just step just a little bit left each time, it doesn't look like a big deal. But over a period of time, I could be miles away from my initial walk, thinking I'm still walking in the same direction I was initially walking. But I don't notice it because I just barely moved a little left and moved a little left to the point. Now, let me go back to what I'm saying. So when you're smoking, what are the first conversations you start having? You start having conversations about existence. I wonder if aliens exist, man. You know, and you start talking real spiritual conversations about God and about who we are as people and what really exists. And these conversations are pretty exciting to have as a young person because there's no right or wrong answers. So all conversation is good. And as it starts taking you along that path, you start changing who you are. So the answer really is I don't know who I would have been, Trinity, if I would have never used the substances that made me go deep inside my brain in a certain direction while protecting the substance, because it can't be the substance that's making me think that. It can't be the substance that's making me walk just a little bit left than straight.
No, of course
It's
not.
me, man. It's me. It was my thought. I did it because I liked it. I did it because I wanted to. I did it because that was my decision. Because 100%, I have to believe that. Because there's no freaking way that that beautiful substance, that beautifully smelling drug that I love so much, could have possibly did it for me. Because there's an allegiance that gets created real early on that's really fascinating, by the way.
It is.
I hope there's study and research done on this at some point in our life. There's a spiritual attachment that we put upon this drug, like no, and trust me, I did a lot of other drugs, but the spiritual attachment and the love that I still have for marijuana, even though I don't smoke it, I still have that loyalty and that love for it. And when I smell it, it's like Homer Simpson with a donut. And I go, donut. I can't help it because it went to that part of my brain and that part of my soul and that early bit of development that I developed an allegiance to it, like a spiritual allegiance.
Yes.
Now, we know that the person you cannot beat in a fight is somebody who is spiritually attached to that fight. They're not walking away. They will die for that fight.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They will die in that. That's how much they believe it. Well, you know what? That's the kind of blind loyalty that particular drug. And it's not just to me, Trini. I wouldn't say it if it was just subjective. I mean, look, one pot smoker always meets another pot smoker. There's like a bond that we have for the rest of our lives. I don't care if I haven't smoked in 32 years. I still have a bond with everybody who smokes pot, ever will smoke pot, because there's something that we're connected by. It's almost like if I wanted to be an alien and I wanted to control the human race, that's how I would come in. I would come in as a drug that is not water soluble like every other dumb drug, because I call them dumb drugs because they come in water soluble. Well, that's how we evacuate everything. The human body gets rid of everything in water form, right? We urinate it out, we defecate it out, we sweat it out, all like that. Marijuana is fat soluble. It's smart enough to know, no, I'm going to live in fat cells. I'm going to live in brain cells, and I'm going to sit there all nice and cozy. And by the way, I like a little bit more fat, so go get me some Doritos, chump. And we go get Doritos so we can build more housing and more condominiums, because we actually listen to it. That's how brilliant marijuana is. And then we build this allegiance to it and this following to it, and we walk like zombies on except we're still our normal self. Yep. We're zombies, but we don't look like zombies. We're followers, but we don't act like radical followers. And that's why last night I told you, it's like and by the way, I'm not trying to be political in this, so don't take it wrong, but just understand what I'm saying and you'll get it. You'll get it. Just like a true Trumpster will not say anything negative about Donald Trump, right? A true Trumpster is Trump, right? No matter what. That's exactly the same thing as true marijuana smokers are. Marijuana, no, KKK, no matter what science you bring, no matter what truth you bring, no matter what you say, they will not say anything negative about marijuana. They will not call it addictive. They will not call it problematic. They'll never blame a life problem on it. And it makes me look like a radical person. But I'm not being a radical. I'm just being a realist.
Same here.
In both scenarios. I'm not trying to be anti-Trump, and I'm not trying to be anti-Biden, and I'm not trying to be anti-marijuana. I'm simply trying to give reality. There's good things. There's bad things.
Yes.
But people who follow it to the point that we're talking about today, there's nothing bad about it. And I think that's where the problem really lies.
Yeah.
And that's where spiritually, I think you lose yourself and you give all of your faith and all of your guidance to a substance, and you don't even know it. You
Yeah.
actually think that you're speaking for you, but no. If you get enough people that do the exact same substances you do and look at them and watch them and see how they follow the leaf, like if it's the Holy Cross itself, you'll see, wow, it's an actual religion. I have bought into this religion. I am a cult member and I actually defend it. And right now, while this dude is talking, screw you, dope doctor. You don't know what the hell you're talking about
Yeah.
while you sit there and light your bowl and laugh at me right now.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
you want to
and
do.
I think that that's what happens is because I know when I've gotten into these conversations, it devolves into a debate on if weed is good or bad, and I'm not getting into that debate because I don't really care. It is what it is. It's an inanimate object. It's neither good
Right.
nor bad. It just is.
Right.
What I have a problem with, especially with people under the age of 25, and if it's illegal, is you are now risking your potential future, right? You're going to potentially miss out on opportunities, and it's going to make your life potentially harder. And you're going to have to go against some of your moral code and start lying and all these other things. And for what? Like, what's the quote unquote reward that you're getting? Is it really worth it? And when they try to break it down that way, it's not worth it. But they still try to convince themselves that it is. And for me, that's what worries me as not only a parent, but just somebody who's in this field is just that mentality, right? And that's also why in the spirituality world, like in Buddhism, they tell you that's why they say get rid of intoxicants when you're trying to have a spiritual connection, right? Because spirituality really is, it's all up here. And so if your brain is being controlled by something else, if your brain is being influenced by something else, then by definition you are not in the moment, right? You got this partner with you that's like a co-pilot that's helping you make decisions. To whereas in a true spiritual sense, it's got to be you. You getting to know who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what you're about, what you're not about. And you can't do that when you got a co-pilot whispering things in your ear. Regardless of how much influence it does or doesn't have, you simply can't do that. And that's what I don't like about it. And I even noticed myself, like I don't drink anymore, man. Like I used to have beers. But I noticed that beer was too much of a part of my life that I didn't like. I noticed that I would start making decisions around it, right? Like I would go to a certain place because it had this or whatever. And I didn't like the fact that even in those minute ways, it was kind of controlling who I was. I didn't like that. And so I stopped. And I don't miss it at all, which is weird because if you would ask me, like, 10, 15 years ago, I would have laughed at you if you told me I wouldn't ever have it because I thought I loved it. And the idea of watching football without a beer in my hand is like, what? Are you crazy? But that's the kind of hold even that had on me. And so I speak from experience in that sense. I mean, I never did marijuana, but I've done beer. I've done other intoxicants, if you will, that do impact how I make judgment and how I decide things and how I look at things. I mean, we see it all the time, right? I mean, there's.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
say, I still use some intoxicants. I still use sugar. I still use caffeine,
Same here.
right?
Yeah.
But the difference is, and I don't want to say the word but I have to because those I at least can tell you what the negatives are as well. I
Yeah.
acknowledge the negatives. I know that sugar has a lot of negatives. I know that the caffeine has negatives, and
Right.
and I'm choosing to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And trust me, I'm a lot better in the conversation of this if you just at least admit what the negatives that it's causing are you on.
Yeah.
I only take issue on this subject matter when someone denies the negatives that could be possible because of
Exactly.
this. If put it this way,
Same here.
I don't care what we're talking about, whether it be gambling, sex, arguments, fighting, relationship. If you can't talk about the negatives,
Yep.
then that's when you should look at yourself and go, wow, how is it that this substance has gotten to the part of my brain and soul that does not even allow me to think anything negative about it? I can't even talk or admit anything negative about it. That's some scary control right there. And let me
Yep.
tell you something. Meth can't control you that well. Heroin can't control you that well. Any person doing meth and any person doing heroin knows damn well they're addicted to it. They know the power of that drug.
Oh,
But even nicotine smokers know the power of nicotine.
we got some comments here. What's up?
I feel the same as weed smokers. I feel like they know that it's addictive. They just won't admit it. But like we know that. Like with anything, because you take a tolerance break, you think
Can you hear her?
I need a blunt, but
Can you hear her?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
but you just when it comes into an open conversation, we always I do agree we compare ourselves to other substances. Like say I'm not as addictive as an alcoholic is, But at the end of the day, yes, I can admit weed is also addictive.
Well, I like that you say that. I think that's a very bright point of you to say that. And trust me, you're not the norm when you say that. If you admit addiction, you're not the norm. The norm conversation is the denial of addiction. So at least you're coming from a good place. So let me ask you this then: have you taken some time out to maybe research what not marijuana, what addiction is?
Yes, only for AP psychology. To be honest, if it wasn't for that class, no, I would have not.
Okay. So what I would recommend is take marijuana out of the conversation so that you can correctly investigate. And the reason is because it's almost like having to talk about how is your home life while your mom is standing there. See, so like if an adult comes to you and go, well, tell me all about your home life, and your mom is there, it's a little bit harder.
Home life is great.
What you really want to say.
Yeah.
So what I would encourage you to do is at least investigate what addiction is and what it means and what it actually does to the human brain and how that further complicates other parts of behavior. And see, because one thing is having thoughts. The other thing is activating those thoughts with backup behavior, right? And you're going to want to know what types of things what starts happening, because dominoes do exist, right? Domino effects do exist, and progression is a real thing. Evolution is a real thing. Science is a real thing. So we want to at least investigate what can that mean for me, so that at least you can start saying, okay, well, if this happens, then I'm going to have to make some decisions, so that when those things start happening, and they most likely will if you continue, then you can at least say, oh, that was something I said I would never do, or I would stop if that happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I find interesting about any of the substances um, is the, especially when you're in the younger individuals, right? The thing that I have a problem with is the idea that I know this is potentially bad for me, but I'm going to do it anyways. Like, I'm going to knowingly do something that could potentially sabotage the most important organ that I have, is my brain. It could potentially get me in trouble. It could potentially make me lose all these different things, but I'm going to do it anyways. Like, that's an unhealthy thing to do. Like, we have a survival. Like you said, the lizard brain. Our lizard brain makes us survive. Like, we have a built-in survival mechanism that says, "Hey, I'm going to avoid danger and live as long as I can." You're overriding that to participate in something, and that is what I think that they have a hard time wrapping their head around.
Right.
Yeah.
So the scariest thing about addiction, as far as decision making and thought processes and action, is that part that I told you, our executive functioning, that we want to control, right? We want to be able to control. Like, I'm allowed to think anything. I'm allowed to think, man, I want to hit you over the head with a bat, but my frontal lobe is going to tell me, dude, if you do that, you're probably going to spend some time in jail. You're probably going to regret it somehow. You know what I mean? There's a conversation you have with yourself, right? So you want that. That protects you from doing a lot of things while you sit there and just listen to somebody that's ridiculous and go, yeah, I'm thinking about squishing your head right now, right? So you want that. What addiction does is it takes that out, and so what you have is the midbrain, the lizard brain, your impulse control, right? You lose the impulse control. What you have is your basic drives, your urges, your reward center, your pleasure center. That is what is doing your action. So if you want it, you do it. And you start looking really impulsive. You start looking like a person that doesn't think things through, because you're not thinking things through. You start making decisions that are based on what you want right this very second, rather than waiting for a bigger, greater reward later. So that is because the midbrain is starting to make your decisions for you, and that's what you don't want.
Yeah, because that was all about survival. It's not all. It's about survival, not living, right? And surviving's great. We're all good at it. Living, on the other hand, that takes some more finesse, I guess. So for me, I think that's that's the debate that I typically find myself getting in. Is just, once again, I don't care about the drug itself. Look, we're not talking about the guy or the girl that's like 30 years old, successful lawyer, likes to smoke up on the weekends, you're paying your bills, you're a happy family person. We're not talking about you. You've mastered it. It's a part of your daily life. Hey, do your thing. Much in the same way, I don't have a problem with beer or alcohol. If you want to unwind at the end of the night, and when you get home from work and you want to have a glass of wine or a beer or something to relax, we're not talking to you. For me, I'm talking about the person, especially under 25, because we don't really know what it's doing to the brain when it's developing. We have some ideas, but we don't really know yet. It's a crapshoot. And
Well, what
so,
we do know is the frontal lobe is not fully developed until about age 25. So,
yeah,
let at least you, whoever you are and supposed to be, let at least you fully develop before you do anything. I mean, really,
yeah,
the preference is the longer you can go before putting anything in your system, or at least moderating the things that the other things, like the sugars and
yeah,
stuff. Just be careful, because the more you put in your system before age 25, the more it becomes like concrete. Then, so just think of your brain, if you're under 25, like wet concrete. What do you do with wet concrete? You protect it from the elements, right? You don't want leaves to follow in it. You don't want twigs to follow in it. Because what happens if it dries with that little leaf or twig in it? To get the leaf or twig out of it, as small as that little leaf is, as insignificant as that little twig is, you have to chisel that crap out of there later on, because
yep,
now it's molded in there. So that is why we say let the brain fully develop before you start putting twigs and leaves in there, or in this case, trees. Like what I did there, Trinity? Trees in there.
yeah. But yeah, I think that it still is fascinating to me though. The normal, normally rational, logical people start to kind of completely change the whole dynamic once weed enters into the picture, and that's what I've still to this day I find it the most fascinating thing. It's like you'll talk to two different people, like you'll know somebody very well and have these great conversations or whatever. The second you start talking about that, it's like that whole person completely changes, and like you said, they can't even mention the negatives. They can't even acknowledge. Yeah, it probably hasn't been the greatest addition in my life. There's been some things that have come along that probably wouldn't have come along had I done that. They can't even talk about that. It's like you said, it's never that. It's always somebody else or extenuating circumstances. They don't want to admit that, yeah, the reason why you were in those extenuating circumstances, because your decision making was based upon that. It's like they don't want to go back. It's a very interesting thing, man.
And like you always say, that two things can be true,
Yeah,
and this is one of those. This is a topic. This is a subject, and this is a drug that you have to accept that both things are true,
yeah,
and you have to accept that you might be that person. Just like there's people out there allergic to shellfish or allergic to peanuts, this may not be the substance for you. As innocent as that may be for your neighbor or for your attorney or someone else, it may not be as innocent for you. It may not be that for you. So you can't defend it blindly, because it's not about the substance. It's about the substance and you. And the only research you have about the substances and you is your self-diagnosis, your self-reporting. And self-reporting is skewed by biasedness. You
very.
know that. You know you're biased. We all are biased, right? That comes with the territory about being a human, right? We all have like this little touch of narcissism in us that we believe, oh no, this is me, mine. You know what I mean?
I'm
This is
different.
the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely would like to hear more questions from her, or thoughts from her,
yeah, yeah. You got any
if
more?
she has any.
Yes, I have one.
Bring them on, baby.
So, are you guys stating that as long as a stoner under the age of 25, admits the negatives that weed comes, then the debate will go more smoother?
I think it opens up your mind to accepting alternative thoughts and alternative ideas, because after all, without communication we go nowhere, right? Before gay people had the rights that they have today, there was no communication about it. And then we started communicating about it. Then we started admitting that we all know somebody. Then we started admitting that, well, no, it really just doesn't affect, what you do privately really just doesn't affect me. Then we started admitting that, well, if it doesn't affect me, then why should I impose laws and rules upon you when it really has nothing to do with me? So it started with at least acknowledgement that they existed, and they weren't these horrible creatures that walk the earth, that if you acknowledge that they exist, then you might actually get it. You know what I mean? So it started with a conversation.
Okay. I mean, I had open conversations with my sister, who's also a stoner, and I told her before that, yeah, I wish I would have waited probably until after high school. I don't want my little brother just to smoke weed until he's an adult, because I can see, like for example, I get paid, and I would base my paycheck off of whether or not I'm gonna smoke for the next 2 weeks until I get paid again. So I understand you guys your point completely, but it is very hard to talk about it with a sober person who never smoked weed before. It's just like you can tell. You can
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah.
The conversation is just different. It's just different.
I hear you. Well, good thing that you don't have to, because there's plenty of people like me out there that that I tried. Look, I tried really hard to smoke pot for the rest of my life. I really tried really hard to never want to ever get. I never intended on giving up marijuana. That if you, as a matter of fact, as good as I feel now, the way I feel now, if you would go back and talk to me early on and say, "Hey, Louis, in the future, you're actually going to live a life 32 years away from smoking," I'd be like, "Whoa, shoot me now. Hell no, man, that'll never be." You know, so I get what you're saying, but I would also say this, because, and I'm going to say this to anyone that's using any kind of drug, not just marijuana, but it be alcohol or whatever. If we only learn lessons by those that have done it, then, to be honest with you, we would never get some of the greatest lessons on earth, right? What we have to do is learn how to relate to someone else for other reasons, for the feeling, for the action, for the intent, for the motivation, for the inspiration, rather than simply the experience. The experience is one thing, but what's really going to help us is being able to relate people that are different than us, but they have the same feelings and emotions, and they have, in other words, they have some of the same challenges. It may look different and feel different, but the coming away or coming out of a challenge and critical thinking and maneuvering and navigating, those are all the same skill sets. So, and the beautiful thing about life is that if I learn, like what I learned in recovery, how I learned how to quit drugs and live life on life's terms, I've taken that same skill set for that, and I've used that for everything in my life and every challenge in my life. So it actually benefited me to learn by that.
But yeah, spiritually, potheads have a spiritual connection to weed, and I can't explain it. Like, I cannot. And it's like something I do want to defend all the time, but I can also admit the negative once the negative is like shoved in my face. Like after we had that conversation, I thought back and I was just like, okay, yes, it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. And that's where it starts, is being able to hear, to be teachable, right? And that's the thing that it typically prohibits from happening, which is why, from a spiritual perspective, for actual spiritual growth, that's why you're supposed to, from this philosophy, you're supposed to get rid of intoxicants, because that's what it does. Is it sets up a barrier for your ability to really truly dive into things, because it's this constant co-pilot that always has an opinion, and you're not able to freely kind of really navigate certain things.
Right.
Go ahead. You got another one?
Yes. Okay.
Bring it on.
So now, from the beginning, I wanted to say this, but I had a manager 2 years ago, and he studied Buddhism. He did the whole 7 days, 7 nights in silence. He did that and all. But he was the biggest stoner I knew. The biggest stoner I knew. And that's where it's like interesting just to know that you guys both spiritually believe the same thing, but you're sober and he's a stoner. And it was just, I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, what I would say to that is the people who did the Crusades and stuff, they were also Christians, but they were murdering hordes of people. So, the philosophy itself isn't really flawed; it's the individuals that apply it. Amen. And so, in Buddhism, there's unskillful people in all walks of life, and so I would say if he studied Buddhism, he would be able to tell you that he's actively doing something that's unskillful. I do things that are unskillful all the time, but it doesn't mean I'm not on my path still. So my intent and my motivation still comes from a Buddhist or a spiritual place. But I have, just like everybody, I have days where I veer off the path a little bit. But the difference is, now in my spiritual practice, instead of veering off the path and ending up like 7 states over, I veer off the path like a foot or so and I come right back on it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So, would you have another question, another comment?
No, not as of now, but they'll keep coming.
You know what I like about what you mentioned right there is one of the things that makes it so hard from being able to accept help from another human. And I think that's why spirituality is so important, to be honest with you, is that humans can fail you, because when a human represents a certain ideology or thought, right, or philosophy, and you want to follow that, and you like that, and you engage in that, but then they're flawed in another way, another human way.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard then to look at that person as that same person that you wanted to look at them, right? You put them on a pedestal and they fell off. And what I would say to that is, with every mentor you ever have, make sure that that mentor is only a mentor for the purpose in which you have them. In other words, a financial advisor is the financial advisor, but you don't go to your financial advisor for marital advice. You know, your physical trainer is your physical trainer, but you don't go to your priest for physical training tips. You know, so everybody has their role in life, and all I want to be used in this lifetime is for the role that I know I excel in, and that's I am the dope doctor. I mean, it sounds funny, it's a nickname, but this is all I know. I am so rewarded by so much with inside me, outside of me, and my experiences, that this is what I excel in. But if you ask me how to fix, the roof on your house, if you ask me how to fix your plumbing, if you ask me, basic tasks that seem really small for some, those are a little bit more difficult for me. I'm not saying I don't know some other things, but this is really the only thing that I feel so 100% confident in saying that, yes, I can consider myself an expert in this, at least in listening and communicating and helping people through one of the most difficult times in their lives. And that is looking within yourself and asking yourself, is this substance or is this behavior helping me, hurting me, and what should I do about it? That's what I excel in. So I would recommend that that's the kind of person you have these conversations with. Because if you have a conversation about substances with someone that's actively using substances, then they have an innate desire to defend. They can't help themselves. They have to defend it. So you have to communicate with someone who's a little bit at least more open-minded to it, but at least follows the true understanding of the positives and the negatives.
And the other thing that we were touching on a little bit that I kind of definitely want to make sure we throw in there, from once again, because we are talking spirituality in a sense. The thing that I've learned in my life, now I didn't have substances as my drug, but as you pointed out many years ago to me, adrenaline was my drug. Adrenaline and violence, right? Like, those are the two things that I kept going back to. They were ruining my life, and sometimes they're making, but I kept going back and I kept defending them or whatever, right? And the thing that I learned, not only through my own education and through being in this industry, but just by watching others, is it's not sustainable, right? Outside stuff, whether it be a substance, whether it be a behavior, an activity, it's not sustainable. It doesn't last, right? And so you have to keep doing it. And then typically when you keep doing it, it's going to get harder and harder to keep doing it. And so the thing that I've learned in my life, and then the reason why I am now the Dharma Guy, and I've devoted my whole life to this stuff, is I achieved something that I never even knew that I wanted. I never thought about it. That the ideas seemed too highfalutin to me and whatever. Inner peace. I got this inner peace. And what I mean by inner peace is, it doesn't mean that my life is perfect. It doesn't mean that I love everything about every day of my life, because trust me, I don't. But the inner peace is, I know I'm good. I know I'm gonna be all right. I know that I have a proper relationship to the things that are happening around me. I try not to get too excited about things. And I try not to get too down about things. I try to take the middle path and appreciate everything for what it is. Hey, this is cool. Great. I'm going to enjoy this while it's here, full well knowing that it's not going to be here forever. And when it goes, it's okay. When something bad comes into my life, I'm going to say, you know what? This sucks. I don't like it, but it's going to go away, and I'm going to enjoy it while it's here. Because when it's gone, I'm thankful, right? And that inner peace is sustainable. What that means is, I don't have a desire at this point in my life to reach out for other substances to give me that inner peace, because I've already obtained it. Because at the end of the day, that's typically what the substances are used for, is to either numb something or to escape from something or to console you somehow, some way. Now, granted, if you've been using them for a while, it's different. The addiction is already on there. But when you first initially start to go do it, it's usually because there's something happening or something missing or something that caused you to reach outside yourself. I get it. But for me, when I found spirituality, it did everything for me to where that need is just not there. Where I'm like, I told you earlier, I don't drink beer at all anymore. I never thought that day would happen because I got enjoyment out of it. I enjoyed the taste. I enjoyed the camaraderie that came with it. I even enjoyed the label of, yeah, I'm a beer drinker. I'm a dude. I even enjoyed all that. I don't care. I just simply don't care anymore. It doesn't. I have no need for it at all in my life. You can put one right in front of me, and I'm good. because I've already got that internal peace, and I got that through hard work. I got that through being open and honest with myself. I got that through studying something bigger than what I am and really kind of wrapping my head around that. So for me, that's one of the reasons why spirituality, especially the Buddhist philosophy, tells you to refrain from intoxicants. That's why it tells you to do that. Because in order to really truly learn and appreciate it, you got to distance yourself from it for a second to kind of like take a step back, right? It's like you can't see you can't see the trees in the forest, right? Like when you're in the forest, all you see is this tree, but when you step back and you see all of it, you start to realize it. You can't do that when you're in the middle of doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I used to tell people in the group room, I had this picture on the wall, and I said, I want you to stand up and I want you to get real close to that picture. And they put their nose on the picture, and I'd say, now describe the picture to me, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I said, now back up from it and look at it and describe it. And that's the simple little things like that explain exactly what you just said. Because one thing is saying all these beautiful ways to say it, but then when you physically do it, you try to do things that you can remember, so that you can use it in your life later. Look, at the end of the day, we all make excuses for our behaviors. We all make excuses for a lot of things, but there's so little in this world that you have control over. I mean, there's just so many things in life that'll frustrate you that you have zero control over, zero impact on. The one thing that you should try to hold on to as much control as you can for as long as you can in your life is what you put in your body. What you put in your body. When you're raised as a baby, at first you have zero control over it. You're told what to eat. You're told and then you get this period of your life where, finally I can eat what I want, how I want. I can put whatever I want in my body. What did you do with that freedom? You finally got a piece of freedom in this world where you were able to put anything you want. You didn't have to eat the applesauce. You didn't have to eat the green beans. You could have put anything in your body, and that's what you chose to stick in there? That's what you chose? Now what? Now you gave control from mommy and daddy to drugs and substances. You bypassed you completely. You never even allowed yourself to walk this earth with you having the one control that you should have, which is what I put in my body. That is the one thing that I can control. Because even after I put it in my body, guess what? I lose control again. I don't know what that green bean is going to do. I don't know what that fish is going to do. Hell, I don't even know what the vitamin is going to do. I have zero control over the things once they're inside me. All I have control over is what I put in initially, and that is it. After that, my brain tells me I liked it or I disliked it. Do more of it or do less of it. I'm going to go to sleep because of it, or I'm going to wake up and run around the house because of it. Anything can happen at that point, but it's up to me to decide what to put in my body. So what I would ask any young person out there to do is go as long as you can with this freedom. As long as you can with the freedom, and embrace that freedom. Embrace that control, because it's the most beautiful thing and empowering thing you could do. And with that, you're going to learn how to control other parts of your life that you can control and navigate. Because again, you're going to have to let go of controlling so much.
Yep.
Does he like me? Does he not like me? Does she like me? Does she not like me? Will she stay with me? Will she not stay with me? Those things, not as much control.
None.
So this is that one little bit of freedom that I just cherish, that I didn't know I was going to cherish as much as I do, Trinity. Because to be honest with you, I'm more of a you know what marijuana taught me? It taught me two words, and it was F it. Whatever. F it. I'll do what I do. Whatever's clever. You know what I mean? I just went with the ride. And as much as I still go with the ride, because there's still a great deal of stoner within me, that. There's a big difference between us and that part of it. You know what I mean? I live a stoner mentality and a lot of things like that. But luckily, I have other people around me that don't have that mentality. It can always give me a little reality check. Oh, yeah, but you have this responsibility today. And it's like, oh, yeah. All right, I'll do that. Then I'll F it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I like that I learned what that feels like, but I think I can teach people how to feel like a stoner without ever putting pot in you, because there is a way to do it psychologically without ever having to risk all the other stuff that comes along with it. But again, I like that you're at least qualifying this entire conversation today with saying we're not anti, because I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
It works for you.
Yeah.
But if you have an anxiety disorder, trust me, any anti-anxiety thing probably is going to create more anxiety than it creates. If you have a motivation problem, trust me, using something that is definitely going to reduce motivation is probably not going to work long term. I like that you said it's not sustainable, and that's the thing that you need to remember. It's not sustainable. What you need is things that are sustainable. in your life, things that you can depend on and go to no matter what. But when anything develops tolerance is a good clue that that substance is probably going to cause you a problem in the future. Because if tolerance does not occur, like I love tacos, Trinity, and you know what? I've been eating tacos all my life. I'm a good Mexican. Tacos, I eat them all the time. I still only eat what 3 to 5 tacos. I still don't eat 20 or 30 tacos. Why? Because my tolerance didn't build. But everything that I quit, it's because tolerance occurred. You know?
Yep.
And trust me, if I develop a tolerance to something, I always back off from it.
Right on. We only got a couple minutes left. You got anything else you want to add or ask or put out there?
No, thank you.
Right on. Well, thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Louis, you got any final thoughts you want to put out there?
Yeah, what I would like to, I think I gave some final thoughts in that
Yeah.
last thing, but what I would like to say is thank you very much for listening, and thank you for being so open-minded and admitting some things. And I think that your brain is going to want to take this in a lot of different directions in the next coming days and the next coming hours. Let it. Investigate it, talk about it, think about it, but most importantly, allow yourself those moments of clarity to just doubt some decisions that you've made. That's freedom of doubt. You know what I mean? And the reason is, notice I said clarity, by the way, clarity, because marijuana does not cause clarity. It creates cloud and thought process. We all know that. What it created for us was I didn't have to listen to that voice or that voice, and I didn't care about this voice and that voice. It was great for that. It is great for that. But the internal voice is the most important voice. What I tell myself about me is the most important voice ever. What I tell myself to do and how to do it and when to do it, that's the most important guidance ever. Give yourself the opportunity to be the you that you were intended to be, not the you that got created by anything outside of you. That's it.
Right on. Well, first, before I give my thoughts, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in. You can watch us live on Tuesdays and Fridays on Facebook.com/WPSN99. You can catch all of these shows on YouTube.com/Dharma Time or on any of your podcasting networks that you use. You can download all those different platforms. And then if you're local, you can catch us on Monday nights at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock on WOKB 1680 AM. Or if you're outside of the local area, you can watch that also on Facebook. I believe it's Facebook.com/WOKB 1680, I believe. I guess my final thoughts, I'll try to make them brief, but I'm just going to reiterate or echo kind of what you said, and that is, the thing that I've noticed and the thing that opened up my mind the most when I got into spirituality was how much we really do lie to ourselves. And so I would ask anybody who's interested in substances or whatever it might be to really just take an honest look. Take a step back and really take an honest look. And is it really that great? Is it causing you to stray away from your value system, or is it making you stick to your value system? Is it really adding positive interactions in your life, or is it adding negative interactions? Because too many times we get stuck in this comfortable phase and we start to just get used to it. And then when we get used to it, we start to think, oh, it's inherently good because I'm used to it. Not realizing it's like the frog in the frying pan, And so, there's a post I made years ago when I said about letting go. And somebody said, it's not that easy to let go. And I said, really? Is it easier to hold on to things and have that weight with you everywhere you go and have it interact with every single decision that you make? Because it sounds a lot harder to me. And that's the thing is we get so comfortable in it, we do forget. We justify it so much that we kind of forget to just take an honest look. But you know what? It's really not that good for me. Look at all the things it's doing. Look at where I'm at in my life and look at all the things that are taking place. Well, that best thinking got me right where I'm at. So if my best thinking is getting me in a situation I'm not exactly fired up about, then maybe I need to take a different look at my best thinking. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that's not a bad thing. I can't stress that enough, man. Reevaluating your best thinking is the power that we have. You asked me earlier what's so good about being an adult. The greatest thing about being an adult versus being a kid is I can always reevaluate my best thinking any day. Every day is a new day for me to reevaluate my best thinking and change how I'm doing it. Just because I was doing it yesterday doesn't mean I can't wake up today and say, you know what, that's not working. I'm going to abandon that and do something different. And that doesn't mean that I'm weak. That just means I'm smart. And the story I have with that is, if you're trying to get into a house that's locked and it's thundering and it's raining and it's crazy, and you got a key ring with 10 rings on it, or a key ring with 10 keys on it, and you try the first key because you swear that's the right key, and you're putting it in and you're upside down and it's just not working, would it be weak or stupid to try one of the other 10 keys? Or would it be weak and stupid to just keep trying to force that same key, and even though it's obviously not working? That's what I'm talking about. So the idea of reevaluating your thought process, or reevaluating how you're judging things, that's the greatest freedom to me that we have. Is we don't have to be pigeonholed into something. We can just change. We can say, you know what, this isn't working. I'm gonna do something different. But anyways, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.